I was skiing really well, and I was going to ski with Gina Kruger and Greg Sorrentis over at Lake Roper. I was skiing, I skied with Will and Ian Campbell at his lake, and I was skiing all over the place a little bit, but mainly at Jodie's. And I was running these scores everywhere, and I'm like, oh, I'm skiing well. I'm skiing well. I phoned up my mum, and this shouldn't be taken the wrong way that she wasn't supportive or have faith in me, but like I phoned her up and I said, I think I'm gonna get a medal, Mum. I think I'm gonna go to the Worlds and get a medal. And she's like, that's amazing. That's great. You're skiing so well. She put the phone down. She told me this afterwards. She put the phone down and said to my dad, Freddie's going to be so disappointed. which really makes me laugh, because then I went to the World Championships and I got that third place, run off against Neville. And, I tied for second, but count back got me. Neville and I had tied in the first round as well. So I got that medal. My parents flew out to watch it. And my mum tells me afterwards, she goes, yeah, I told your dad you weren't going to get one.
Hey, what's up, everyone? Welcome back to the Water Ski Podcast for episode 41. Which is part 2 of 3 of my interview with Freddie Winter. This was a good one. We just had a long-winded, bouncy conversation in typical the Water Ski Podcast style, I guess. But we covered a lot, actually. We covered his first World Championships and how he qualified for those, which were the 2013 Worlds in Chile. We also talked about the move to the United States, and doing his MBA in Monroe in Louisiana and skiing collegiate. We also talked about the 2015 season, including the Worlds. And then we spoke a lot about some of, shall we say, fallacies in the sport, some of the things that need to be better in the sport, primarily from a judging, driving standpoint, but also from a skier standpoint. And there's been a lot of chatting about driving in recent days online, and certainly there's a bit of that in this interview as well. Interview which occurred around late April, yes. So it's been a while. So it goes to show that some arguments, some topics remain ever present. Topics in these episodes, which is brought to you by the H2O Pro Shop. H2O Pro Shop is the place to get all your water ski equipment with free shipping in the 48 continental states and a great international shipping rates. H2O Pro Shop is still shipping daily through the pandemic and always works hard on getting the items you need quickly. Social distance out on the water with some new toys for your boat. You can email them at sales@h2oproshop.com, and they'll be happy to help you with recommendations and any questions you may have. And you can also call them at 1-888-789-5404. Now, if you go on their website, which is h2oproshop.com, you can take 10% off of your orders directly through the online store with discount code TWSP. But hurry, because this discount will only last for the weeks you hear their name here on the Water Ski Podcast. Skis, wake surfs, wakeboards, and more from the biggest brands in the industry. H2O Pro Shop, founded by skiers, run by skiers, and made for skiers. Again, you can go on h2oproshop.com and have 10% off your order with discount code TWSP. This podcast is also brought to you by the Flowpoint Method. Flowpoint Method is a brand new online water ski training program developed by Jenny LeBeau and Marcus Brown, one of the guests of this show who recently got a little pinky injury. I believe it was mountain biking. But anyway, that will take our good friend Marcus away from the water for a little while. We wish him the best. If you want to hear from him and hear what he has to say about water skiing, you can check out episode 10 of this podcast or sign up for the Flowpoint Method. Jenny and Marcus really took water skiing and said, okay, how do we become better? And they just looked at everything. Physical aspect, nutrition, strength and conditioning, technique, but really more of a broad, overarching technical understanding of the sport. And I honestly love it. I use it. I believe they have the right approach. And as you may have heard before, this is why I'm collaborating with them on the mindset section of the Flowpoint Method. Daily, weekly updates. They have a huge library of videos, instructionals, and writings. You can finally remove all the guesswork and get the most of your time on the water. I should also mention they do, I think, weekly or bi-weekly meetings with Flowpoint Method members. Kind of like a Zoom meeting where you can ask questions to Jenny and Marcus about things you need to know. So you can become a member of the Flowpoint Method by going to thewaterskipodcast.com/Flowpoint Method, one word, or you can click on the link in the show notes. Now, let's get back to the episode with Freddie. This is part 2, and then stick around because on Tuesday we will publish part 3 and the final part with Freddie.
So then I ran 39 at the end of that year. It took me 4 years to run between running 38 the first time to running 39.
Yeah,
which is for someone that age, pretty long time.
it is.
You know,
So where was the first 39 running tournament?
so it was at the Seton Classic 2011, October 2nd, freezing cold, 5 mil dry suit, and 4-pass rule. You're only allowed 4 passes. So the whole week, I'm like, guys, please change that rule. No, that's the way it's been. This is we've done this tournament for 30 years. This is how it is. Okay, fine, understood. So I go out at 35 every day that week, and I think I can't remember if it was the first or second round, but I run 35, 38, run my 39 away from the dock, one at 41 on the way back in, and that was cool. That was super cool, and that was like a big monkey off my back. And I did, and it was last tournament of the year, whatever, and in my huge Wiley and kicker, and it was on my and it was like my second week on my good nano twist that I loved. But
was that validating in a way? Because you said, I can understand monkey off the shoulder, but was it because you'd already been on that path with Nathan, sort of taking, not that you weren't taking it seriously before, but you had some kind of wake-up call of things need to change.
Structure. Let's change the structure of this. Let's dial things in a little bit better.
So was that one at 41 validating in that regard?
It was.
Did it make you think, okay, we're doing something right, or I'm on the right trajectory, or whatever?
It was, but actually that moment that you're talking about came actually later, where I'd run it and it was like, but I should have been running it for a year. I just hadn't done it.
Okay.
The next year, I knew that year. I was like, start of the year, I'm like, okay, the World Championships in 2013. They didn't pick me in 2011, the absolute bastards, and. I've got to go. I've got to qualify next year because they're not going to pick me because these guys don't like me.
Yeah.
So I've got to qualify. I've got to be in the top 20 in the world. So I'm trying. I went to every record tournament in the UK that year, every single one that weren't conflicting, and didn't really make it. And so I went to the Europeans and my binding released on a deep water start in the final.
Oh yeah.
First year on Velcro, and I felt like it was better. I was on the double power shells Velcro, and my binding released, and I said to Steve Sopp, who is one of the good guys, British team manager, and another guy that's given so much to the sport, who probably was one of the guys that hadn't selected me the year before, but I had a faceless enemy, but I said to Steve, I said, look, Steve,
the institution.
Yeah. So I said to Steve after I'd messed up, I said, look, Steve, you got to pick me for the World Championships next year. I know that was unfortunate what just happened there, but you got to pick me because right now it doesn't look like I'm going to get the scores, but you got to pick me. And he goes, Freddie, probably not going to pick you. And I remember just thinking I remember talking to one of my friends there, and I just said, I think I'm going to quit. If I'm 23 years old and I don't get to go to World Championships, what am I doing this for? I'm probably just going to quit. Low point, whatever. So I need to get all my scores in that year because I couldn't do any tournament scores the start of the next year because I'd be at university. So I'm like, okay, I've got to run I've got to probably get 2 scores of a 2 and then a piece of 3 at 10.25, 41 off before the end of the year. Get to the 1st of September, don't have a single one. Like
you don't have a score at 41.
No, I think I had a 5. And so I go to a tournament in France, and first round, like my parents kind of realized that I was like, this was do or die. So they're like, hey, why don't we go and do that tournament in Gravon? You know, people get good scores there, and we'll go do that. And they didn't need to go to a tournament in France, but they're like, well, we'll make it a family trip, and you know, let's go have a nice time. So we drove down. And first round I ran like I put my ski over the line out of 3 at 39 and was just like, oh my God, like I've just got 2.5 at 39. I've come all the way here. And, you know, it wasn't normal to travel, you know, out of the country to go to a tournament.
Yeah.
Just a record. Next round, finally run 10.75 and 1 at 41. And I'm like, that's good, but it's not enough. It's not enough. I got one more round. And then we had a ferry booked and my parents had to go to work the next day. And it's getting to late. And I'm like, I'm not leaving. I'm not leaving. Mum's like, we got to go. I said, I've got to do the last round. I'm not leaving. And yeah, and so they left. And I said, I'll make my own way back. I'll find a way. Don't worry about it. I'm not worried about it. So I was somewhere near Paris.
Yeah.
So I had a friend who lived in Paris who'd come to stay with us, you know, a couple previous years. I just texted her. I'm like, hey, look, if I can find my way there, can I stay with you tonight in Paris? And she's like, yeah, no worries. So final round, I'm like, shit, I've got to fucking do this. I've got to do this. And I run my 39 and I'm like, okay, PB is 1, got to get around 2. Got to do it. The driver lit a cigarette. He realized the pressure in the situation. He lit a cigarette after I ran my 39. And finished it.
In the drop.
In the drop. So I must have had a few minutes, you know, whatever. I don't a smoker, but I'm sure it takes a little while. I remember thinking, wow, this is nice. I mean,
right.
Come back in, 1, 2, hit 3, and I'm like, okay, I'm halfway there. Okay, I mean, I'd got 2, and it was right. I'd only got 2, and I'm like, okay, one more score. I need one more score, and so then. I think from that moment I ran 39 like 2 out of 3 rounds for the rest of the year. I then did until the end of the year. I had another 12 rounds and I ran it 9 times.
Oh,
and
wow.
I ran 2, 2, 2, 2, and then I ran a 2.5 last round of the year at very last round of the year at Seton Classic, full rubber 5mm wetsuit, 2.5 at 10.25.
Starting at 35.
No, I think they changed the rule that year. I think
did?
maybe because I ran it away from the dock. Let me see. So 32, 35, 38. Yeah, no, it was the 5th pass.
Okay.
So they changed it, yeah. So, and I'm telling you, that was one of the best beers of my life, was sitting in the pub that night with all my friends from university, because I went back to university because it was right at Thorpe.
Yeah.
And I sat there and I went, guys, I think I'm going to make the World Championships next year. And they were like, yeah, and everyone else in the pub's like, what's going on?
To Freddie.
Yeah, exactly. It was like that. So, so that was really cool. And during this whole period was really funny because I was, you'll appreciate this being like kind of scores and knowing what's going on around the world. When I tell you I knew every single skier's score, I could recite them to you that might go in ahead of me.
Yeah.
And I would like watch the California Pro-Am and see, skier X get 1.5 at 41.
Oh, that improves him.
I'd be
Yeah.
like, yes. No, 1.5.
Yeah,
yes, he didn't beat me. And then whatever. And then I remember Soaked happened. And because I was doing a record event every weekend, I went to France twice, Gravon, Lacanau. I went to, Gosfield. I went everywhere in the UK and then Thorpe at the end. And they had the Soaked event. And I remember I was so happy because Soaked was not sanctioned. And I was like, no one's getting a score this weekend. Yes. So anyway, got to the end of that and made the World Championships.
And what spot on the ranking
15th.
do you remember? Oh, okay.
15th.
So not barely.
2.25. It was 15th on the October ranking list, and I think maybe I moved down to 17th for the spring, but I can't remember. But anyway, I was in, and I was really excited about that. So then that whole year, like finished university in the spring, in sort of June, and then it was kind of funny. I had a friend of mine, Peter Simpson from the Lake, who I would go to. He was a member of a fancy gym, so he'd be like, "Hey, you want to come to the gym with me?" I'm like, "Yeah, sweet." So sitting there one time, having I think in a sauna or something, something super weird, but like,
right.
And he's
Movie-like.
Yeah. He's like, hey, so you got the World Championships, like, what are they, like, November 15th? And I'm like, yeah. And he goes, don't you think that you got to do something every single day to positively influence the outcome there? I was like, oh yeah, that's a really good way of thinking about that.
Right.
And it seems so obvious now, but I was a kid, okay, I was 23, but I just didn't get that mindset where, I always trained hard, but maybe I would
also do other stuff.
Also do dumb stuff like, eat fried food 7 days in a row or not eat, before I trained or whatever.
Yeah, whatever it was.
So so that was kind of my aim for the rest of the year. Then I went to the Europeans, and so that would have been like, I had like a bunch of tournaments in like 3 or 4 week period just after, like, sort of end of August, early September. Went to the Europeans, qualified top seed, which was huge as well. Because I beat Thomas de Gasperi, who was an idol of mine. Just someone that I just saw would, he could do no wrong, and he was not having his best moment on a water ski, and I was skiing well, so I beat him, and I was just so happy, and went to the final, and I ran 2, and the other guy ran 2, and the other guy, won't name his name, decided that he wasn't particularly happy that I was scored 2, and was, anyway, whatever. I don't even want to get into it.
Yeah,
but
a bit of controversy at the Europeans.
Certainly controversy, and I ended up coming second, which was obviously completely unfair. But
well, let's not. We can get there. We cannot. It's up to you.
Yeah. But then the following week, I'd been invited by Dave Good, rest in peace, and Justin Campfield, who's part of the Good setup, and said, hey, why don't you come across and do? I was going to go to Diablo Shores tournament. He's like, why don't you come across to stay here and do the tournament? I ran 5:41. Everyone was going. I didn't know this, but everyone's going, well, that's bullshit. That kid can't run 5:41.
Right.
That loser. We never heard of him.
So that was in California? Or
No, that was before. That was at Utah.
In Utah?
In Utah. This crazy lake, like, a hard place to ski. But I ran, first time skiing behind Chad Scott. You know, guess what? I skied really well, So, and then, go to California. And here was a really cool thing Nick Parsons did, because Nick Parsons had texts all week saying, well, those scores are bullshit. Like, that guy, he can't do that. And then Nick told me that, but he didn't tell me until after the California Pro-Am.
Yeah.
And Nick's just a good guy, like that was a cool thing for him to do, to not put the pressure on me. I turned up going, okay. And I was first off the dock. I ran 3.5:41, and at the end of that round, I was like third.
I remember that.
And I was like, oh wow, this is pretty cool. And made the final. Thomas beat me. He got his revenge. And I came sixth or whatever. But that was like, I came back to Thorpe to England. Everyone was like, because I worked there. I was there all the time. And so I knew everyone super well, and they were super supportive of me. And they were so happy that I'd gone to a big tournament, like against the big guys, and actually come out somewhere decent.
Which is a bit different than the Princess Pro-Am, right? Like, now you're out of the country, you're somewhere else. Yep. Like this was almost like a true pro experience, right? Yep. You were somewhere else, away from home, kind of having to figure out who to ski with and all of that. And yeah, I can see that left a mark.
And these guys, like, they were just massive, like, positive people around me. They were so supportive, and I skied them every day. I was one of them. I was primarily a worker at the lake,
right,
and skiing. On secondary kind of. I was spending more time working than I was skiing, so it was like, so I knew them all really well, and they were super supportive, and so. So then the World Championships, which was the next kind of big tournament, I broke my ski about 4 weeks before it. 4 or 5 weeks before the tournament, and I'd been skiing really well on this ski. Well, I say I broke it. I put a huge hole in the front of it. Okay. And Glenn Campbell looks at you, goes, you can still kind of ski on that. I mean, not very long, but wrap it up, duct tape, don't make sure it doesn't get wet.
Right.
And so I was like, oh god. But anyway, go to the tournament on a brand new ski that Dave Good sends me, and then I was training with Jody Fisher. I'm running, not really running 41 that much, but I'm running 5 4, 5 every set.
So that's, sorry to interrupt the story for a second. In this year, the 2013 year, the year that you're going to Worlds, you started going deep 41 or running it.
Yeah, I went from, I mean, I'd been sort of getting, so 2012 was a big year because like, I mean, I didn't mention him, but like talk about people that were like really good boat drivers who were really awesome. With Glenn Martin was there. We know Glenn from, you know, he drove the World Championships last year. He's one of the best drivers in the whole world. And he worked for a year at Thorpe. Or year and a half. He kind of, you know, he worked a full summer there and then went and did his teaching and was sort of helping out on weekends. But I had, you know, Nathan and Glenn. I mean, God, has anyone ever had access to two better drivers and the same age? So we were, you know, best buds, all just hanging out all the time and just having this amazing, you know, amazing
Glenn
summer.
is pretty young. Yeah, I don't know him personally.
Glenn's 2 years older than me.
So my age.
Yep. So he's, I think he's 2 years older. I'm pretty sure he's 2 years older. So it was 2012. I was 22. Nathan was 20, and Glenn was 24. That's right. So we were all just skiing together the whole time. It was a great, and the best day of the week was Thursday, which was John's day off. So we'd go trick skiing and we'd do, you know, we'd really mess around. But yeah, so those guys were just massively helpful, and we went to I'd improved. I'd gone from being that kind of, you know, deep 10.75 to like really getting deep at 10.25. And
that's a huge improvement in a year.
Yeah, well, I think I changed my bindings, which made a difference, but also it was more focused skiing. And yeah, I mean, my PB went from being 1 at 10.25 to 5 at 10.25 in 10 months.
That's, I mean, you could, I guess in your own head, you could say, well, that's all the time I made at the time that I lost in the running 39.
For sure.
But that's huge.
Yep.
That's really big. And that's what I was kind of getting at in terms of like, before you moved to the US, before those worlds, you know, like you already posting some scores and certainly getting to a level that would have been competitive right there and then.
Yeah.
Right. But you weren't yet into the whole circuit thing, you know, like you made it to, like, you made it to Worlds. You had this tournament in California, which sounded was more a little bit of like, hey, why don't you come and ski with us? And then you did the California Pro-Am. Mm-hmm. To me, it's a very interesting part of your journey, right? Like let's face it, a lot of people that get into pro tournaments are like, you know, the late 39, early 41, and then you see them get stuck there for a long time, and maybe they break off or maybe they don't, right? You already had surpassed that level before you even started doing 2 or 3 pro tournaments in a year.
Yeah. Well, I just didn't, it just seems, I mean, it sounds stupid. It seems so expensive. You know, it seemed so ridiculous for me to buy a plane ticket to go to the US, and then when I got here, spend $350 to enter the tournament. And then probably, you know, there wasn't, look, my parents, they've been more supportive than, you know, they couldn't have been more supportive to me. But I mean, I didn't feel right to go, hey guys, do you mind? Because I mean, I was working at Thorpe, but I wasn't making money where I could just, I was making, you know,
you couldn't really buy a ticket to go to the US like on a whim because you wanted to test yourself.
Yeah,
right?
No. So, and even when I entered the Diablo tournament, I'm like, wow, that's a lot of money to enter a tournament. And I mean, not to single out that one, like they all are.
Yeah, they're expensive.
They're ridiculously expensive. So, yeah, I don't know. I mean, I wanted to be really good, but I don't know why I didn't, at the point where I thought that I did it at the right time. You know, it felt like the right time for me. And I remember Glenn Campbell, a good friend of mine, went to Malibu earlier that year, and he comes back and he's like, hey, I was talking to Will, and we were like, why isn't Freddie here? And I was like, I don't know, it just seemed expensive. It seemed like I didn't really want to do it. And I've watched it, you know, but I can't really answer your question. Don't know.
Yeah. No, to me, I don't know that there's a specific. I don't know that there is a specific answer to it, but certainly, whatever conversation you had with John and Nathan on that day put you on a path that accelerated your growth, and it kind of worked very well, right? And then pieces changed here and there. But
I think that's slightly off. I think that conversation I had made me, conditioned me to get the scores I had been getting in practice, and some improvement. But I thought I was underperforming at that point, and then I went to performing where I should be. Yeah. So it didn't. It made up lost time. But yeah. So yeah, and suddenly I was like, and it all felt pretty normal. I mean, that's looking back on it, it's quite a big jump, but it kind of went like, yeah, I mean, that's what I can do. So, so yeah, so then I go to Jodie's, and I find this is one of the big moments that really makes me laugh. Was I was skiing really well, and I was going to ski with Gina Kruger and Greg Cervantes over at Lake Roper. I was skiing, I skied with Will and Ian Campbell at his lake, and I was skiing all over the place a little bit, but mainly at Jodie's. And I was running these scores everywhere, and I'm like, I'm skiing well. I'm skiing well. I phoned out my mum, and this shouldn't be taken the wrong way that she wasn't supportive or have faith in me. But like, I phoned her up and I said, I think I'm going to get a medal, Mum. I think I'm going to go to the Worlds and get a medal. And she's like, that's amazing. That's great. You're skiing so well. She put the phone down. She told me this afterwards. She put the phone down and said to my dad, Freddie's going to be so disappointed. which really makes me laugh, because then I went to the World Championships and I got that third place, run off against Nephew, and I tied for second, but count back got me. Nephew and I had tied in the first round as well. So I got that medal. My parents flew out to watch it, and my mum tells me afterwards, she goes, "Yeah, I told your dad you weren't going to get one," and I went,
yeah, which to kudos to your mom. Like, it's not everyone that goes to Worlds the first time and gets a medal. I mean, the only personal experience, and maybe it's just recency because of interviewing, the only one that I know of, his name is Will Asher.
Yeah. Was that second in
03? In 03,
when he should have really won according to the current rules.
But first Worlds.
Yeah.
I mean, that's not typical. So I can see your mom going, does he understand that he's going to the World Championship? You know what I mean? Like,
yeah. No, I mean, I don't know. I just felt confident. And then I got there, of course, and I didn't ski very well in the first round. I'm like, oh god, just whatever. Right. But then I ran the 3 at 41 in the next round, and that was huge. And but again, you get these big moments, and I couldn't have been happier. The guys ahead of me were Nate Smith, who was unquestionably the best skier in the world for 2 years at that point.
Yeah.
Will Asher, 2-time world champion, unbelievable. If I lose to those guys, there's a lot of guys I would have had no problem to lose to, but I mean, if I had to pick two that I had to lose to, it was those two.
Yeah, exactly.
So go home, and I remember like a few weeks later, and this is me being naive, I said to my mom, like, it's kind of weird, Mom. Like, I thought that I'd have loads of people trying to sponsor me. I thought like I was going to be like, I just got a World Championships medal, and no one really gives a shit. Like, what's up with that? But anyway, through all this time, I kind of decided I was going to go to, and it was, I was going to go to Monroe. And it just seemed to me that, like, okay, I've run these scores, 2 at 41, 3 at 41. I can maybe do this. And so I'd made arrangements to go to Monroe, and I ended up doing my MBA at Monroe. So turn up in Lafayette. My God, you're giving me the influence. I'm sure I've read Lafayette on like 17 items of your clothing somewhere today.
What? No, not today. Not today.
But yeah, turn up in Monroe in start of 14, and that was again great environment. I do remember thinking, like, I was used to skiing every single weekend, and I went the longest without skiing that I had since I was 9 years old, because the boat wasn't in, and they didn't want to put the boat in, and I'm like, guys, what the hell is going on here? I mean, like, I came here to ski. I didn't come here to, like, twiddle my thumbs, pick my nose. I want to ski, and it's going to freeze. I'm like, well, then we take it out. But I want to ski today. Being a bit of an arsehole, probably. But I remember this quite well. I went to, the boat gets put in, and it's a freezing cold day, and I'm like, I don't care, I'm skiing. I have my wetsuit here. So I walked to the mile and a half, whatever, from the house. Didn't have a car, didn't have a bike. To the dock. James Earl came and drove me, and I skied quite well. On the bayou.
Yep.
And it was. I remember it was like, I didn't understand what it was in what Fahrenheit was, but I remember it being 34 degrees. I'm like, is that quite cold? He goes, that's near freezing. Oh, okay. But then, and that was all fine. But then I walked back, and I was used to having the sauna at Thorpe. Like, it's like this kind of hot room where you get out of your ski set and you walk straight in there and you're fine. So the only cold bit is really when you're in the water. And I try and walk home, mile and a half. And halfway back, I turned around and went into the gym. And I remember talking to the people behind desk at the gym. One of them was on the ski team. I'm sure she just thought I was this like insane person. I just walked in there for a chat because I was so cold. And but that was kind of what it was to me. It took me some time to realize, but yeah, you don't need to do all that, because I was used to, skiing consistently, but maybe less frequently. I would ski all the time in the summers, but when you can ski every day from, February 20th through till December, you don't need to ski in the winter really.
Yeah.
There is that, and I now realize that, but I didn't get that at the time. That wasn't part of what I'd experienced. So I was like, if the lake is not frozen, I'm going to go ski.
Yeah, exactly.
So yeah, I was there for 2 years, and I mean that first year kind of like didn't quite get on the podium in a pro event. Like I think I did at the end of the year at California, and that was great. Like my first head-to-head final, I came second. But following year, and at the end of that 14, having lost the collegiate nationals the previous week, I'm like, there was a ranking tournament, a record event at Bennett's the following weekend, and the day after the nationals banquet, I went to Bennett's because I had some stuff there, and I was like, I'd had a really good time the night before. Put it that way, like I overhydrated or all that sort of thing, overserved, and I ran 1:43. And Johnny Sharman, another guy who's just been golden with me, just helped me
for
out.
me too, man. You're talking about
complete legend.
Yeah,
he's in the boat going, like scratching his head, going like, bloody hell, Fred, like, what the hell? That's quite good. So then there's that ranking tournament the next week. I'm like, I'm going to do that. So anyway, aim of the whole week was let's run 41, and I ran it.
Yep.
Snapped my tip off my ski in the first round, out the exit gate, 6 of 41, ping the ski. So we bandaged it up, bondo, all that sort of rubbish. And then run 5 in the second round, third round out of the 4, next morning, I run 41. I'm coming in at 43 and I'm going, don't fall at 1. Let's not be a hero. Andy Mapple has won at 43. That's the European record. If I can tie Andy Mapple, this is
insane.
This is dream come true. I will obviously not be as good of a skier as Andy, but the score that I had would be, obviously had different conditions, way harder, but I would be officially
next to it.
So yeah, I would have my name next to him. So I did, and that was just, that was a big moment, and really, and that I'd always said, like, from the days that I told you when I was standing on the docks at the side of the lake at the Princess Prime, I'm going, well, I'm running one at 14 at 34, so I need to go. I got this many passes so I can get to 1 at 9.75, and I'd done it.
Yeah,
that was awesome. But ultimately, apart from that, not that good of a year, not sort of a crazy year. The next year was a good one. I started running 41 pretty consistently. Not consistently. I mean, I think I ran it 4 or 5 times, and on the podium, I think every event apart from one, and the one I wasn't on the podium for was the one where they didn't have a final, and I was being so mad. I'm like, I've just broken my, I was on this good run.
Right.
And 15, that was the one where I should have won the Masters, but not going to go too far into it. But I mean, I won the Masters, and then the score was reversed incorrectly in my opinion, and I think the opinion of every single person at the lake. But anyway,
why don't we take a break and we go into some of that?
Okay. All right.
Hey, what's up, guys? I just wanted to take advantage of this break, one of the many breaks Freddie and I took in this 4.5-hour conversation we had, to tell you about a good initiative. As you may know, in the United States and elsewhere, tournaments are happening, as opposed to Europe, where I'm recording this from, where so far we don't know if we'll have water ski tournaments. In any case, the U.S. Nationals are going to be at Bennett's in Zachary, Louisiana. And there is a fundraise to have the Water Ski Broadcasting Company, which you have heard from those guys on the podcast. There's a fundraiser to get them to webcast the U.S. Nationals. I think is a great idea, and it will make watching the Nationals a profoundly good experience. They're just good guys. They do a very professional product, and they love skiing. So I love skiing. I want to watch the Nationals from here with pro quality. I've already donated, and I encourage you to do the same. if you want to donate, you can go on gofundme.com and search for 2020 Water Ski Nationals webcast. I just did it right now, and that the correct crowdfunding link pops up. But I've also put the link on the show notes. You can go and click on that link, and if you can donate, I encourage you to do so that we can all watch the biggest tournament in the world, the US Nationals, with proper quality. Anyway, sorry for the break. Back to the interview. Sweet. So we were talking about 2015 season, right? So that was going to be another World Championship, and now you're in the US, so probably more pro tournaments. Talk me through that year.
Well, yeah, I didn't go to Moomba. Didn't really fancy that. Collegiate schedule, college schedule, that sort of stuff. I was just like, I can't be bothered.
Right, it's tough. March.
Seems a lot, yeah. So my first tournament of the year was actually Masters. Because the Swiss Pro that year was the week after, sorry. So Masters, trained really hard, and went there, and it was kind of a really weird one. I'm going to tread lightly here because, I don't want to get in trouble. But it was a weird one. First, they gave me the wrong score in the first round. I ran 1.5 at 41, and they gave me 1, which I was just like, "What's going on?" Doesn't matter. I didn't make any difference in placement. I'm not going to make a fuss. Who cares? Next round, I go out second to last off the dock. I needed it was the guys before me had Thomas didn't ski because he was hurt or something, or he anyway. So I needed to run 1 at 38 to get second, guaranteed second. But obviously I needed a really big score to win. And I was skiing well at the time. It was my first year on the Monte Carlo ski that I was skiing well on. And I run 39 with a really, really with a big crosswind, and I kind of get out there, so it gets huge slack, and go to 41, 3 at 41, which is a big score. At that place with that crosswind, and I turned 3 right in front of the pavilion, super happy. Get to the end, drop in, come in, and then they go, "Hey, they've changed your score to 5 at 39." I'm like, "What? What are you talking about?" And then
right.
I'm like, "What? What do you mean?" I was like, "Oh, I guess they think I went inside a boy 6." Well, so I get in a golf cart and then zoom down to the end, and then someone, I think it was Tanguy Bennett, gave me $200 to do the protest. I didn't have it on me. That's a mistake I won't make again. But he gave it to me, and so I made the protest. And so Nate's out there skiing at that time, and this is for the Masters title. I'd never won I'd won your tournament in 14, and I'd won it again in 15. But I won it in 14 for 2015. But I'd won a European Championships, but I'd never won something that, with all respect to your tournament, not everyone was there.
Yeah.
It was me versus Carlo in the final, but there wasn't the Thomases, the Wills, the Nates there.
Yeah.
So I'm going for my first big win, and I'm like, 3 at 41 would have been real close. And so I zoom down, do the protest, and they give me that Nate's coming in at 39. They go reverse score 3 at 41. Confirmed to me, and I'm like, sweet, it's awesome. And that wasn't fair to Nate, because Nate, when he went off the dock,
he was told 5 at 39.
Told 5 at 39, so he runs 39, throws the fist, thinks he's won the Masters. They drop him in. They go, no, you need to run 3 at 41.
Right.
3.5 at 41
to win. Yeah.
And I'm sitting there going, this is really awkward. They've told him the wrong score. This is a complete screw up. They've told him the wrong score. They've corrected it, which is good, because that's what I ran.
Right.
But it's unfair on him, because he was psyched up to run 39 and win, and now he's got to go and run 3 at 41. You know how it is in a tournament. You're hyped up, and then you kind of get this, you do the score you need to do, and then you just get
relax,
this big, the rush of adrenaline just drops, and you kind of just get this almost calm. Then he's got to hype himself back up in 10 seconds flat to go again.
Yeah.
Sure enough, he goes inside a 1. Big crosswind. Gets pushed now, goes inside a 1. And I'm going, I haven't won. This isn't over. They're going to give him a reride.
Yeah.
they're going to give him a re-ride where he can just go out and ski, and that would be fair. Well, instead of that happening, I mean, not to get too into details of it, long story short, there's a money put on my score again, and then an hour later, I'm told that my score confirmed as 5 at 39 and that Nate had won the Masters. And it was just the biggest joke. I mean, am I allowed to say that? I don't know. But I mean, it was just so ridiculous, in my opinion. And like, I had people come up to me, people who know water skiing, shook my hand. I'm not going to say the guy's name, but shook my hand and said, "You're the Masters champion. I don't care what anyone says." Everyone from the UK was, because the webcast had finished and I was Masters champion at that point.
Right.
Congratulations. I had to write them all back and go, yeah, well,
actually,
I didn't win. When I knew I had. I mean, I ran around that point and I saw, and I demanded to see the video, and we know what the rule is. It's you got to give it to the skier if it's unclear. It was, it should have been given to the skier. And
but so this is strange because, like, I know that probably since then you became a very studious person of the rules of water skiing. And I mean, we're not talking about like if you fall at 2 is 2 1/4 or whatever. We're talking about like this kind of stuff, like the technical judges kind of stuff. So the rule goes, if you have $200, you can protest, right? It's a right to protest and ask for a review. You did that, and they confirmed your 3 at 41 score.
Confirmed it.
So someone else can actually pay and re-protest that protest?
Yes, turns out.
I'm talking officially, like it's allowed.
I didn't know at that point that anyone could go and put money on someone else's score. But you can. That's in the rules. It's up for discussion if a score that's already been reconfirmed can then be put money on.
Right. That's what I'm saying.
That is, but our rule book is too general in a lot of places. There's some things which should be definitive which maybe aren't, because it's hard. Everyone's I get it. People are doing this because they love it, not because they're, legal writers of rules for a job. So maybe things don't get put down the right way.
Right.
So I get that. But yeah, it's a full grey area. If the judges confirm a score a second time, having already been given the money as a protest, can that score be protested on? Well, it was taken in this case, and then it was overturned again. So it went from being 3 at 41 to 5 at 39 to 3 at 41 to 5 at 39. It changed 3 times after the original score was given. Now, that's crazy.
Yeah.
And, I still look at that and I'm like, that's just... That is very strange because, Masters is the second biggest title you can win, and one where I never really had any luck and wasn't good enough to go win it at time. I turned up there skiing really well and then messed up.
I mean, some would say it's the biggest one. I know you wouldn't, but it's either second or first. There's no discussion about that.
I think if you would call it the first, you'd be American. But I mean, I think the rest of the world would say that the world's is bigger. But like in just from my discussions with Americans, seem to from the USA, maybe from Canada, maybe continental Americans. Masters is the biggest. There's not many international skiers that would say the world is lower than the Masters. I mean, to me, that's comical. It's the World Championships.
Yeah.
But I mean, it's the biggest pro event there is. And, you win the Masters, you make some money. But certainly my motivation, it goes Worlds, then a great chasm, and then the Masters, and then somewhere a little bit after that, Moomba, and then a chasm, and then everything else.
Yep.
But yeah, I mean, arguably the biggest tournament, agreed. I mean, it's a huge tournament.
Yeah, exactly.
I mean, I'm not discrediting the Masters. It's massive.
No, I'm not saying that it doesn't transpire to me that you're disregarding them. I'm just saying, like, a worst case scenario is after the Worlds. So, it's a huge win that you could have had. And at the time, you hadn't won Worlds. No. So it would have been the biggest win of your career. For
sure. I mean, by a distance, because it would have been, I'd have beaten everyone. Everyone had turned up that time. So yeah, I mean, that was hugely disappointing. And you're right, it did push me into kind of like, well, why is that? How did that all happen? And you do see at tournaments, one of my big problems with pro skiing is, for example, fake S-turning, where people go inside of a buoy and pretend they got it. And then the judges going, well, he's celebrating. And maybe maybe they didn't see it, or that, you know, well, the rule is give it to the skier, but the skier knows
Right.
they didn't do it, and it's nefarious. And you know, I'm going on record and saying, if anyone ever sees me do that, come punch me in the face. I mean, really.
Yeah.
Because I can promise everyone, if I ever go inside of a buoy and claim it, it means I 100% truly in my heart believe I went around it.
Yeah.
And I don't think that I ever really get that wrong. I mean, I'm not saying it couldn't happen. There's sometimes in practice I think I'll have grazed around buoy 4 at 41 or whatever, but I didn't. Like, I see the video and I'm like, oh. But you generally know 99 times out of 100.
Absolutely.
So you know, I really struggle with that, and you know, sometimes the judging standard is not where it has to be. Our friend Benny said something that I thought was, you know, someone just makes an offhand comment, it sticks with you, and I think it was he said that we're using Walmart level equipment for professional level competition, and you know, video playback and stuff. I mean, like, you know, a lot of the time that you rely on video review, then you go look at it and it's broadcast. It's like sort of, you know, a VCR tape from 1991 level, you know, for this broadcast. Now, Vince, Benny's brother, is changing that. You know, he has these HD 60 frames per second transmitters from the boat.
Yeah.
No one makes a mistake at the Swiss Pro Slalom. No one, because they have access to Vince's, you know, and the water ski broadcasting companies. Stuff, and that's fantastic, and I think that's the way we need to go. Obviously, it's prohibitive to put on a water ski tournament. We're holding the water ski nationals, collegiate nationals here later in the year, permitting, you know, all the stuff going on in the world, and that's not even a super high level event because we don't have it's a C class tournament. We don't have to have all that stuff, but it's expensive. So, you know, but sadly, I've seen tournaments. I've been pushed off the podium and lost the Masters because the technology was maybe wasn't NFL, NBA, World Cup football level.
Right.
You know, and the counter argument you hear to that, which is kind of funny, is, well, there's controversy in every sport. You go, yeah, but usually, I mean, you're right, but it's fewer and further between.
Yeah, for sure.
And also, guess what? I go to every pro water ski tournament. You know, not everyone watches all of them. Some people do, but not many.
Right.
And I'm there and I see it. And, you know, the webcast, you know, so I don't know. It's a frustrating thing because, especially, like, you know, going back to, well, I'm putting my life into this, and then that achievement, that, you know, hey, the drop between first and second at the Masters is a few $1,000s.
Yeah.
No matter about incentives.
So I'm curious to hear your opinion on this, because one of the arguments I've heard before, and it's actually the reality of water skiing worldwide, is that we don't have professional judges, right? Mm-hmm. We have judges who are volunteers. Maybe if in great situations, they get their expenses paid, like their hotel and their travel and whatnot. But that's not their main profession, right? Certainly the same could be said about drivers. So do you think that that's one of the things that is missing? Like, if we had professional judging, like any other sports has, right? Like professional referees, professional judges, even in smaller sports. Like I know for a fact sports like gymnastics and figure skating and other sports that are not pro, they do have professional judges, right? Do you think that's what's missing?
Well, first off, obviously the sport can't afford that and can't sustain that. So, you know, you can barely, I'm not saying barely, I mean, it's not super easy to make a living as a pro water skier. So, I mean, if we got to pay, you know, what's a professional judge going to cost a year? You got to pay him $50,000? I don't know. I mean,
I don't know.
Whatever, 40 grand, whatever it is. I don't think that's possible. I think that it would be better if we had them. You know, would water skiing be better if, you know, we're going to have a tour of 12 stops and it's going to be the same judges every time. And because I think, and look, I'm not saying that we have bad judges or always, but there are some who you know, there's some people, I mean, you kind of look at the name and you're like, oh God, but because things go wrong. But I think if we, it's just exposure. Here's the thing for me. I mean, I drive a water ski boat every day. Okay, I can tell pretty much from the mirror if someone goes around a buoy. It's the same with drivers. If you're in a boat every day, you're going to be a better driver than a guy that jumps in the boat. No matter what the potential ability level is, if you can get the practice in, someone who might have a lower top ability will be a better driver than someone with a very potential high ability but less practice.
Yeah.
So if I for example, driving, if you're not in the boat enough, you shouldn't be driving a high level tournament. That's a fact. Sorry, if you're not in the boat driving high level, and it's also high level skiers.
Yeah.
I would never want to ski in a tournament behind someone that doesn't pull 10.75 constantly, if not 10.25.
Yeah.
39 and 41.
It kind of goes back to, I know you're an avid listener of the Water Ski podcast. It goes back to what Mario said. Like if a day would come where I'm not, for whatever reason, being able to drive on a regular basis, I'm not going to ask to drive the worlds, because I know that I don't have it in me.
But that's why Mario would be in every single pro skier's top 5 drivers.
Yeah.
It's not just his ability behind the wheel, which we know how good he is.
Integrity.
It's because he has integrity, and because he realizes, and we've talked about this, and he said it in his podcast, he knows that ultimately he is there to serve the skier. I mean, maybe serve is not the right word, but he understands that he is there to facilitate a whole process. It's not for ego, and it's not for... And look, there's some drivers that do it because they want the big scores and stuff. Now, that's fine too. But so long as you're giving everyone the same pull, and you're look, me, I'm a fine water ski boat driver. I mean, it takes a lot of skill, and I would say
we can argue that.
I'm
just joking.
No. But what I'm saying is,
I'm just joking.
I'm fine in the sense, like, I'm going to give myself like a 7 out of 10.
Yeah.
Maybe a 6.5. I'm going to pull anyone who's 32 off, 35 off. Really, they'll be great.
Yeah.
No issues whatsoever. Start getting guys that are coming at like 41, I might make a mistake. I probably will make a mistake once in a while. You give me 10 passes at 41, there'll be a couple of mistakes in there where I'm too far away, too close, whatever. So I recognize that in myself, and I know that, but on the other hand, I do drive a lot. Now, if I drove 6 times a year, like some of these water ski boat drivers that think they're really good, I would be awful. Yeah. But you got to get in the boat. But going back to judging, it's the same thing. I see people turning buoys on a slalom ski every day. If it's watching myself on video, if it's
people that come over TBS,
Manon here, or Travis, or
students,
and students. And I can tell in the mirror. I can tell from their approach. I can tell how they turn buoy 2 if they're going to make it outside of 3. Just because I see it, I'm so exposed to it. Some judges, they're like fixing their eyes on the buoy, and without any other information, they go, did he get around it? Did he not? Well, he celebrated, so he probably got around it. And that, that sucks. And look, but, we go back to water skiing not being able to afford professional judges. Ideally, we would, and I think that there are great judges out there. And I don't want to sound ungrateful to the judges for all the judges suck. That's not what I mean. And there are fantastic ones out there, but sometimes you see mistakes and you kind of go, oh no, like that sucks. Like who, that's avoidable. And that's just someone who doesn't really understand water skiing in the same way that everyone on the dock does. Yeah. And that's annoying.
No, it is. And I mean, granted that I don't think you're coming off as ungrateful, but it makes a difference when, you do 2 months of training for that one tournament and you're putting, blood, sweat, and tears, as you said before, and money and, commitments, and then you show up and you're getting screwed over by someone that maybe sees water skiing 5 or 6 times a year on a weekend at tournaments. It's tough. Now, if they've done 20 tournaments a year for 10 years, then you already feel a little different, But if they're not as exposed,
and they're at the lake, and
exactly.
Are they skiing themselves?
Or they might not be skiing themselves, but they're at home reviewing tournaments or doing all this like updating that that the federation send out. So in a sense, you don't see the same care that you have about your own craft in theirs.
Exactly.
And then you go, well, why am I being judged by this person?
Yeah.
as opposed to maybe a judge who really cares about their craft and, come in and judge you, right? That's a different story. That's a completely different story.
And then, I mean, the judging and the driving thing is it's so concurrent. It runs parallel. Vince Stadelbauer, right? We have Mastercraft boats here.
Yeah.
Okay. Vince phones me up 5 times a year and he goes, Freddie, I need to get behind a wheel of a Mastercraft. Can I come over? And I'm like, yes.
Yeah.
This guy. And there's other people like that.
Yeah.
There's no, and Becky Lathrop, same thing. She's always bugging, hey, can I come up? I'm like, Becky, you shouldn't have to. I should be begging you because you're that good of a driver. Same with Vince.
Right.
These guys are so good that.
But they want to be good.
But that's why they're good, is because they want to get in the seat, and they're not arrogant enough to go, because they all drive different.
Yep.
If I drive a Mastercraft boat all day, if I go sit in an Nautique, I'm gonna do less well than if I, and Nautique's great, but
just habit.
Same with the Malibu.
Yeah.
They're all different. It's like if I'm used to riding my D3 and I move to an HO, I'm gonna struggle.
Yep.
Hey, we'll actually rise that thing to really, really good scores.
Yeah, it's habit.
So you've got to be able to. You got to put the practice in, and I, man, I mean, you'll love this. I mean, it really made me chuckle, and this is just him in a nutshell. Vince gets in a new boat that he hasn't ever driven in.
Can I try to guess what you're about to say?
Yeah.
He asks you to do an up and down.
No.
Okay.
This is different. So he's never driven this boat before.
Okay.
It's a new boat, new model.
Yeah.
And he goes, he gets off the water. And I said, because we were kind of interested, what's Vince's input? He's such a good driver. Like, how does it drive? He'll be able to know. And he goes, yeah, it's okay. Gets on the phone with his girlfriend. He's like, and I overhear it. He goes, Alice, it's going to take me 200 hours. 200 hours, I'm going to be perfect. And it was the most Swiss Vincent thing. And the fact is, Vince would have gone in that boat and given a 9.3 out of 10 pull the first time, but he doesn't want to be 9.3. He wants to be 11 out of 10.
Yeah. Well, as we're talking, Vincent episode hasn't come out yet, but it will be out by the time we publish yours.
I can't wait to listen to that.
One of the things he said is, my parents, and I know this about, my parents taught me the respect for the sport. Yeah. So you combine that with being Swiss, 9.3, it's not going to cut it. He
wants to be the best, and
you see it in his webcasting, right? The first year they came to work at San Gervasio Pro-Am, him and Tony as a team, they were working for 2 days, and they had some issues. Can't remember specifically what, but they said we might not be able to be online until 9, and amateurs started at 8 o'clock. And I told them from the get-go, I said, listen, I care about amateurs, but I really care about the pros being online. So as long as you use Friday to get ready for Saturday, I'm fine with that. And his words were, every skier deserves to be on the webcast, right? And sure enough, at 8 a.m. on Friday, they were ready. So no, that's Vincent in a nutshell right there.
I love him to death. What a guy.
It really is. So yeah, that's sort of 2015. It's fair to say it opened your eyes on a part of the sport that maybe either you hadn't keyed on before, or like it didn't affect you personally, or whatever. Something happened that you went, okay, there's something wrong here.
Yeah, and I mean, heightened expectation. Maybe the previous year I had been pushed off the podium for another skier who didn't go around boy 3 at 41 and admitted it, but the judges gave it to him, and then he didn't admit it. And the reason when I went to ask, hey, can you just look at that again? Oh, there was sun in the camera. And I'm like, oh, so you just gave it to him? Fine. Yeah. I mean, so you kind of go, oh, that sucks. But I wasn't that bothered then. The next year, I'm like, okay, I really wanted to win the Masters. I want to win everything. I want to, and I don't want my hard work, because I was taking it more and more serious. I don't want my hard work to be taken down by something that's out of my control. And something that's out of my control is poor judging. Yeah. Which does happen. Like I said, grateful to the judges. They're great, and there are great judges, but there are also ones that make mistakes, and even great judges make mistakes. But so yeah, from there, I definitely kind of let's tighten the ship up, boys. That's kind of that's where I'm at. I'm like, let's make this a bit more. Yeah. If we want this to be taken seriously by the outside world, we got to have this right, and so that means that the world ranking list has got to be right. All the tournaments have got to be right. You can't. Controversy is good in some ways, but like it can disillusion someone to the point where they might quit, you know, like, and also if
Jamie, look at Jamie, 243 in France. There's no video. Like, I mean, I can't even imagine that.
No, I mean, I don't even know how he dealt with that, but if you're consistently seeing mistakes in tournaments and it's obvious to the world, people just go, oh, it's not. Hey, same page, Worlds last year in Malaysia, an unnamed, I'm not going to quote them with a name, but one of the super guys who I respect with anyone in the world, ex-pro skier, fantastic guy. He goes, honestly, mate, I didn't give a crap about the Worlds in Malaysia because that wasn't a water ski tournament. That was just a shit show. Like, he goes, I didn't even watch it. Like, I like pro water skiing, but that was a crapshoot. And so and so that sucks.
Yeah, this is someone who did the sport, who, I mean, I don't know who you're talking about, but it's someone that is a skier. Like, he's going to want to watch Worlds.
Top level skier who is still involved in skiing, ski design, all that sort of stuff, and good guy. And he, you know, so if you can see, you shouldn't be seeing, if a sport is to be taken seriously, you should not be seeing consistent ridiculousnesses.
Yeah.
If that makes sense. You can't, you should not be able to point at so many different things that are stupid in it. You know, poor driving, poor judging, you know, hey, let's be honest. I mean, the European Council took out however many scores last year because of poor driving throughout Europe last year, you know?
Yeah.
Like, and that's good, they're tightening up. But if you look at like all of the there's a lot of things you can point at water skiing which kind of suck and kind of shouldn't be that way. Mm-hmm. And that's frustrating for me. And, you know, people always say, hey, focus on the things that you can control, and don't worry about the things that you can't. I just feel like some of these things are so avoidable and so fixable that it does stress me.
Yeah.
So, you know, I feel like everyone who's involved in water skiing should want to tighten up, do things the right way. And let's have a. I think, you know, it's a very British attitude. Let's
make them hear what we think.
Well, no, more like, you know, let's put ourselves up and have a fair fight. Let's give it everything, but let's do it the proper way.
Yeah. Okay.
You know,
okay.
like stiff upper lip and all that, which it's a load of old rubbish. But that is kind of, I feel like, you know, let's go as hard at it as we can on a fair playing field with the right stuff going on, with the right calls being made, with the right path, you know, consistent for everyone. With
Okay. No, I thought you were meaning more in terms of like, okay, maybe you can't control, I don't know, how judging is done or how judges are selected or any of that. You know, it's not under your control, but certainly if you see wrong, you're going to speak up, right?
Oh yeah, no. I mean, for sure. And I think maybe that's to my detriment, but like, you know, I think if my impression is if everyone decides, hey, look, we're not going to have this, and we all sort of have a productive talk about how things can be better at the scene of the crime, as it were, mm-hmm. then things will improve.
Oh, for sure.
If you know, if everyone calls out bullshit, then there's only one way the sport can go, and it can be better. Because, you know, ultimately, the fairer the sport is, the better it is for everyone.
Yeah, for sure.
Because the argument that, well, you know, it doesn't matter that those guys cheated over there because it motivated them. That means that these guys over here got pushed further down a list, and they might quit water skiing. We don't want people quitting because they feel that there's unjustness, you know, happening to them. We want people to be motivated because everything is fair.
No, for sure. No. I mean, look, you know that you find me in full agreement with this. Yeah. You know, let's go back to that 2015. So yeah, second in Masters. There's another Worlds. What happened in that 2015?
So yeah, a pretty good year. And then towards the end of the year, I kind of had I had a weird knee injury, and I was like, I had made the mistake, which we sort of touched on earlier. Like I'd pretty much skied from that like January 20th consistently, like of 14 when I arrived in the USA in Monroe, and I skied kind of consistently because I stayed in the US that winter. and I could ski consistently until the end of 15 when the Worlds were. So I got to the end, I was like broken down. I'm like, oh my God, this is hard work. And I was like, man, I'm going to go to the Worlds, and having been on the podium like every weekend apart from one, this is going to be hard. And like I had ski issues. I was on a ski that wasn't working, and I was sort of, there was a new ski coming, and it was 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 coming, and it arrived 1 week before the Worlds, and I had to change to it, and that was hard. And but went to the Worlds, and in the end had a runoff. It's my second runoff in 2 World Championships, and won a medal. Exactly the same situation. Tied first round, tied second round, and managed to get the medal. So I was 2 for 2 bronze medals, which was quite nice. And again, tied for second. Thomas was ahead of me, but he beat me on countback.
Yeah.
But yeah, and that was, I was really happy with that. I mean, considering how broken down my body felt and how I wasn't skiing well. I mean, that was the hardest graft I've done in water skiing. Mm-hmm. Like picking myself up from being just a bit crap.
Yeah.
Not like feeling worn out, not feeling good, and then skiing badly, poor scores in practice, not really going in with much confidence.
To be able to do very well.
To go and do well, and I was proud of myself for that. I did feel pride in sort of whereas everything had kind of been on the up before then. It was like this was the first time where I'd sort of felt adversity, and I did feel a bit burnt out. Mm-hmm. Something you know all about. I mean, I did feel like, oh my God, this is hard work. I was so stressed. I had an ear infection. I stayed in bed for 4 days, 10 days out from the Worlds.
Right.
And then got, in that time this new ski arrived, the shit drained from my ear, and then I was good to go and went and skied with a thing, big bandage on my ear, and then went and it was better. So
right. So that year, like you said, you were on the podium on all tournaments but one. I know you won San Gervasio. Yep. What else happened that year in terms of pro tournaments?
Well, I won. So that was a cool one. Was 15 was the week after Masters. I got my revenge because I was so pissed off after Masters, where I was like, well, that's just completely unfair. And and I'm like, well, okay, in 1 week's time, Swiss Pro Slalom, first year they've ever done it. Okay, not being unfair to them, it's not as big as Masters. It's not really that close.
Yeah,
but
everyone is there.
Everyone was there. Oh, everyone was there.
That's the thing about Swiss Pro.
And it's Swiss. And I had been skiing really well. I'm like, okay, well, I can see about this. So I go out, long story short, run 41 second round, my first 41 in a pro event, won at 43. And then in the final, I was second to last off the dog. Parrish was after me. The top score was 3 at 41. Will, Nate, and whatever, who they'd all got 2s and 3s. And I'm like, okay, well, if I can get around 4, I've guaranteed second. And if I, see, and then Parrish after me, you never know.
Yeah.
And I ran 41. And like, dude, that was just an amazing feeling. And I ran 1 at 43. And I'm watching from the end. And Parrish earlier that day, I'd run 1 at 43, and then he'd gone out straight after me and run the easiest 41 I've ever seen in my life, ever, towards me, opting up from 38, 41, runs it like it's nothing, and then runs 1.5 at 43. And I'm like,
damn.
Let me have this. I love Chris, good friend of mine. We ski together here a fair bit, a lot. But I was just like, don't beat me, man. Let me have this moment. And he ran 3.5 at 41,
So he got second?
He got second, yeah.
Ah, there you go.
And so we're on the podium, and it's me top, then him, and he comes over to me and he's like, dude, that was good skiing. Yeah, it's Chris Parrish.
Yeah, I mean, that's going to leave a mark.
Yeah, and he's like, hey, this is that you just showed the world. He said something like, you just showed what you can do, and you're one of the guys now. And I was like, yeah. And I felt like, okay, a week ago, I felt like I won.
Yeah.
And now, okay, it's a small, poor revenge, if you call it a revenge, but like, I got my own back in a small way because I went and showed that I was good enough to win the Masters, even if I hadn't won it on paper.
Yeah.
But yeah, so that was probably the high point of the season. And then, I think I won, the San Gervasio, and I third at Malibu or whatever, and probably second at California, and a good season.
Good season.
My most consistent season until last year. Up to that, and then. Yeah, and that takes us to 2016, and that was my first. So hey, and the day after the Worlds, this was quite funny. I was finishing, my time in Monroe, And my parents, who are super awesome, never want to stress me out before a tournament. They knew I was like 10 out of 10 stress for the Worlds.
Yeah.
So I knew that the very day after the tournament, because they came out to watch in Mexico again, I knew that they were going to say to me, all right, Freddie, what's your plan now, because they didn't want to bring it up before. And so I kind of like had sort of been rehearsing it. I knew, okay, we're going to go to the airport tomorrow. I know it's going to come then. So Mum and Dad sitting like either side of me, I seem to remember. And Mum goes, so, Freddie, like, done the Worlds, what's the next? And I went, right. I had it kind of a PowerPoint in my head in some ways. I'm like, hey, I have been on the podium every tournament, blah, blah, blah. I've earned X here, this is my earnings. This is what I'm getting from sponsors. This is whatever. And so and I had this whole, 10-minute speech lined up. And after like 40 seconds, Mum goes, so you're going to go to Florida and be a pro skier? And I'm like, well, yeah, but...
Let me finish.
And she's like, that's fine. I'm like, oh. And like, it was weird because I was so hyped up for this moment where, look, they could have said what they wanted, and I would have done what I wanted.
Yeah.
But you want your parents' blessing.
No, of course.
And you don't want, and look, they've been very good to me and supported me in so many ways over the years that I wouldn't ever want to kind of almost disappoint them with a decision that I made, especially a big one like that. Like if they were to say, all right, Freddie, like come back to London and get a job and you've got 2 World Championship medals, like you've done it, like
right.
But no, they were like, go for it, so that was pretty cool. I was like, but let me finish my speech, come on. So then 16, I'm my first year as a pro skier, like no other commitments, and so
school's done, everything is done, just ski.
And then I did, was skiing really well, was running 41 a lot through a bunch of tournaments. Didn't really get like. I won a tournament in a head to my first, and I think still like only the time I've beaten Nate in a head to head, in a pro head to head. I've done it somewhere else, but was after or before after Moomba in Australia, a great tournament in La Trobe. So I won that, but then I kind of didn't get the result at Masters. I messed up, and then it was sort of not going that well. But then I. At your tournament, I remember being super mad with my feelings on this, but the format kind of like I won the first round and then like me and Nate met in the semi-final instead of the final when we had the best scores. We were running 41 all rounds, and then I ended up coming third and Thomas came second, but his best score of the whole tournament was 3 at 41 and my worst score of the tournament was 4 at 41, and I was like, oh, this is crap.
Yeah.
But anyway.
But that was still like, you running 4 and Nate running it was kind of like, someone told me at the time, at least, it was like the highest scores ever done in a head-to-head.
Still is, and Thomas equaled it. Thomas ran 4, and Nate ran it the year after.
Oh, okay.
I think 4. Yeah, I don't think anyone else has really run 4 and then lost.
Yeah.
Apart from me and Thomas. Corey, I think, ran a 3.5 and lost last year at your place.
Oh, that's true, against Steven. Yeah.
But yeah, that was gutting. But he skied amazing. So. And then, so I go to it. I'm still in Italy. Stayed with my good friend Thomas Gustafsson, another top chap who you've had on the podcast before, and stayed there for a week and coached. And then ran 1.5 43 the following weekend, European record.
In Naples.
In Naples, yeah. I will always remember that. It was amazing. And then go back to England. And I'm training on another level, like skiing with Steve Glanfield at Oxford, which is one of my favorite places to ski in the whole world. And there's 2 courses there. You've been there.
Yep.
Both courses I'm running huge scores. And I'm like, wow, okay, something's happening. This is like I've been up and up and up and up all year. Running big scores. I go to nationals on the weekend, first round, blow the tail, break my ankle. And I'm like, oh my God. And like, it was really funny that actually, this is kind of a weird story, but they gave me 2 weeks to start with. It's just sprained, 2 weeks. I'm like, okay, sweet. Okay, good. And then I do the x-ray. So like 4 or 5 hours later, I'm afraid it's broken. It's going to be 2 months. Shit. And at that point, I'm like, okay, 2 weeks. Okay, I've got Malibu in like 4 weeks or 3 weeks. I'm sure I could do a week of skiing. Maybe I can start a little bit early. I'll be fine. I'll do Malibu. I'll do California. These tournaments, I have to do them. Then she says 2 months. And I broke down in tears. It was pathetic and sad, but like I was so upset because like I was, I had nothing to do but be a pro skier. Yeah. And I couldn't be a pro skier. So then I go see the specialist on the Monday, really, high-end guy, and he says, I do an MRI, and he goes, bad news. You've really completely buggered your deltoid ligament. It's frayed. It's bad. 4 months. I'm like, oh my God, this is getting worse and worse and worse. It's gone from 2 weeks to 2 months to 4 months.
Right.
And then I'm like, okay, that sucks. But I pretty much lost the season anyway, so that'll take me till December. Because he said, well, you can have surgery or not surgery. If you don't have surgery, then it'll probably be worse, but you should have the surgery, but it's your choice. I'm like, okay, I'll do the surgery, but at least there's going to be nothing worse than that. It's going to be 4 months. I know what it's going to be. And he said that ultimately, like, I could probably ski earlier if I didn't do the surgery, but it might last longer, like the pain or whatever. So
the whole decision process,
I'll do the surgery. So get to go in for surgery. My first ever surgery, local anesthetic, all that sort of stuff. It's pretty nervous. Go in, and then I come out, and the anesthesiologist, she says to me, okay, there's good news and bad news. And you kind of come up and down, like if you've had surgery like that, where you're waking up and you're falling back asleep, and it's this whole weird situation.
Yeah.
Good news and bad news. I'm like, oh, okay. And I'm super dopey. And she goes, the good news is your ankle's great. The surgeon did a fantastic job, and that's great. And I'm like, okay, the bad news. And she goes, the bad news is you got a problem with your heart. We detected a really, really strange issue when you were under, and probably it's going to be life-changing for you. You're never going to be able to exercise again. And I remember well, I was like, what? And then I don't know if like the surge of blood pushed it back around in me, and I passed out again. Like I went straight back under.
Wow.
And I woke up like however many minutes later, completely intensely unhappy and stressed, but I didn't really know why. And then I remembered.
Right.
And so, throughout that day, I'm not afraid to say I was probably the biggest arsehole that existed, because I was just like, it's gone from being 2 weeks to 2 weeks to 2 months to 4 months to a lifetime.
Right.
I've got this dodgy heart. They thought, and it was funny because it was in the newspapers 2 or 3 years previous and more recent than that, maybe 1 year. Fabrice Muamba, a Tottenham Hotspur football player, had collapsed on the pitch and nearly died, but he'd been saved. And then this other guy, James, what's his name? A cricketer, amazing cricketer, coming up. He'd passed out during training, and same thing. So they had a thing called sportsman's heart, where your muscles are too big on the heart, so it over pumps and you can basically, like, if you get it the wrong level, you'll just pass out and die, basically.
Yeah.
And especially, so they were bringing the heart specialist in, and I was doing all these and I'm like, so just tell me like what's going on. He goes, yeah, like if this means that you're not going to be able to have your like pulse go up above 100, for the rest of your life, otherwise you're risking. And I'm like, what? There's going to be no sport. This is going to be like
cubicle office.
Crazy. And everyone's there trying to calm me down, and I'm just being like, you don't understand, my life is over. And I'm literally planning in my head, all right, I'm not going to not ski, so I'm going to leave like, no one's going to know where I am. I'm going to go and ski in South America, like in the it's like somewhere people aren't going to find me.
Right.
I'm like, this, I can't give this up. I'm going to, this is my choice, my life. It sounds dramatic, but that was where I was that day.
Mm-hmm.
And then finally, the heart specialist comes in. I've done these tests all day, and it was like 6 hours later, and he comes in. He's like, yeah, so we've done the test, and like you're fine, but just tell me about your lifestyle. Tell me about this. And I'm like, okay. He's like, do you drink, and do you smoke? Do you do drugs? And I'm sort of telling him, yeah, like I'll have a beer, but I don't smoke and no drugs and all. And he's like, he's telling me, we're having this conversation. After 5 minutes, I'm like, look, his name is Dr. Shakespeare. I said, Dr. Shakespeare, I'm really sorry. I don't mean to be rude, but you came in and you said, I'm going to be okay. What do you mean?
Right.
I'm not going to die today, or what do you mean?
Right.
He goes, oh no, you had like it was an irregularity brought on. He said it was either stress, dehydration, or a hangover. And I remember thinking that was so funny, because obviously I hadn't, I'm like, well, it's probably, I drunk exactly, I really wanted to have my surgery go well. So I drank the exact level of fluid that I was supposed to drink and not eaten whatever.
Right.
And of course I hadn't been drinking alcohol. So, and I was stressed, but he goes, it was like this strange thing. And so, yeah, so then I was like, okay, so I'm going to be fine. And the funny thing was from that was like, although it was very painful, it was maybe the best thing that could have happened, because instead of being mournful about my 4 months, I was like, well, at least I can bloody ski again.
Right.
You know, and I didn't really care. Like I was like, okay, look, the season's over and that sucks, but like at least there's a next season. So yes, that was early August, and from there, like I decided I wasn't going to sit on my butt for the rest of the year, and I decided to go coach. So I went to like, Dubai, did a month in Australia coaching. Greece, Cyprus. I coached around England, and I'm sure I'm missing a few places, but I basically didn't spend more than 3 days in my own bed after my sort of recovery period. And I was going on the plane, I was being wheeled onto planes, crutches. The first time I went coaching abroad was with George Hatzis in Kaiaphas in Greece, and I was there. Like they were helping me out the boat with my crutches and stuff, but I didn't want to be sat at home in bed. So I was like, and that was the weekend of the Europeans.
Right.
So it got me something else to think about. Otherwise I'd have been like, oh my God, I want to be at the Europeans. But yeah, so I made, it was one of the best decisions that I ever made, because although it wasn't maybe very good for my waistline, because they really fed me and watered me very, very well for these whole few months. And I was treated so well by these most incredibly generous people you could possibly, people I made friends that I will have, whenever I go to that country, I will 100% see them. They're great people. And that was a lot of fun, was to actually make a good thing out of a bad thing. Every cloud has a silver lining. And although I missed, I was really skiing well, and maybe my ankle's not what it used to be, I enjoyed myself, and I had a really good 6 months. And honestly, whereas water skiing can be a lot of extreme highs and crazy lows, where you put a lot of effort into everything I did panned out. Like, this was the first, 6 months in water skiing since I'd become like a pro, so-called pro, where I was like, oh, I'm going to go to Greece and I'm going to coach, I'm going to make this amount of money, and I'm going to have fun, and then I'm going to go do this. And it all panned out, and I had an even better time than I possibly thought it was, and I had no negatives.
Yeah, so basically, the not even the lifestyle, but like the life decision that you made and you communicated to your parents, even though you couldn't ski for a good chunk of the year, it was already in place, and kind of like the wheels were turning. So you couldn't necessarily ski, but you had a certain reputation to where you could continue to live off of skiing.
Yeah. And I did pretty well, if you commit to coaching a lot, you can do okay.
Oh, absolutely.
So and I, couldn't have, there's nothing else I would have rather done. It was a fantastic time.
Yeah.
And then all the time, what was cool was I'd fly in from Athens on a Monday, and I'd go to my physio on the Tuesday and the Wednesday, and I'd be on the rower and all the weights and stuff, and then fly out again on the Friday or Thursday to Limassol, and the coolest one was my good friend Stuart Willits, who was in Australia, and I was going to go stay at his cabin out next to the lake, and I said to him, hey, like, not understanding what the situation was, because I'd met him previous. I said, hey, do you want to do some coaching? Do you want me to come and do some coaching? He's like, yeah, made it work. I said, is there a gym or anything nearby? Because I kind of need to do a bit. And he's like, leave it with me. So I turn up, and him and his mates at the Mugra Water Ski Zone Club, in one of the coolest places you could ever go in the world, they've rented a rowing machine to sit on the front deck of their like little cabin. And when I say it's a converted caravan kind of thing,
right?
So that I could be in the boat for 8 hours a day, get off, do my 20 minutes of rowing and my certain thing that I had to do, and they would always, they would be there, like 10 of them, huddled around, because I'd said I'm going to do it every day.
Yeah.
Especially when they made the effort, to get that out there. It's the middle of nowhere. They all huddled around for my last, 100 meters, and they were going, come on. They'd be cracking open the beer. Come on, come on. And I'd be like passing out, and they'd put a Corona in my hand. That was great. But yeah.
So that was like the winter in between 16 and 17.
It was sort of September, October, November. And I started skiing a little bit in November, October. I skied in Porto Heli in Greece, my favorite place in the world. I put on a ski because my physio said, you're way ahead of schedule for recovery. You can get on a ski. but it was like right at the end of October. So it would have been 3 months since surgery, give or take a week or something. It was maybe 2.5 months. And so I got on a ski and, huge ski, 24 miles an hour. And I was so happy.
I know.
But then it changed almost immediately to, oh shit, I've got so far to go. And I had this real weird melancholy moment where where I was like, I'm so happy to run 24 and that's pathetic because I've got to go back. I need to go back if I want to be a contender. Like if I want to go to the top again, I got to be doing, I was again counting the passes till I need to get. So that was strange. And I remember I took it really slow and I, midway through November, I'm skiing at 32 miles an hour, starting at 32.16 meters. And I got in the boat at Stony Park, Australia with Cole Kaltbrenner, awesome guy who was coaching me, or who was driving and we were, I was coaching with him and it was awesome. But another guy gets in the boat and he goes 16, 32 mile an hour. What? What's wrong with you? And I was so mortified. So I was like, yeah, that is really shit. I also thought that guy was a fucking arsehole. But I was like, this guy sucks. But yeah, so but then and then throughout the end of the year I came back to Florida and did a bunch of skiing and it kind of got back. My aim was, I think I ran something stupid my aim was to not miss a pass. And so I wasn't really going to 39. Wasn't going to 10.75. But I didn't want, I was doing a lot of, I was, 32, 16, 34, maybe, but I ran something stupid, 179 passes in a row before I missed one. And that was my aim. Right. And I missed one. I fell around buoy 1 at 11, out at Johns Lake in Claremont, and kind of upsetting. But and here's the cool thing, that because I'd made that commitment to coaching, Travis, who I now work for at the boarding school, saw that I was doing that, and Brooks had just left, so he kind of offers me the position. And I was like, oh, I don't know, do I want to be a coach? And I kind of was like, well, I can make a bit of money, and I've only been doing the pro thing for a year, but I've also seen that when I got injured, I wasn't going to have any income, so maybe this is a good thing, put some money aside. So long story short, I'd agreed to do that. And so my very last set of the year, I come to the boarding school where we are now, and it was the 23rd of December, and I do my passes, and then I'm like, let's shorten, let's go 39, and I ran 39, my first one since I broke my ankle, because I broke it around 3:41, and went home on this high, of okay, I'm going to do it, I can do it, I'm still only 39, but I can do it. Yeah. So, that was, and the ankle was still kind of crap. It was, it was still sore. I couldn't hurt it, but yeah, it was a strange moment or a great moment to kind of feel 39. That's I can make a pro final with that. Yeah. I'm not there, and it's not consistent, but I'm on the way.
But you're not at 16, 32 miles per hour.
No.
Yeah.
No.